I think you could make the argument that this is the greatest achievement in long-form storytelling on American television.
Yeah, I think it's a great argument.
I guess I just wanted to ask you a little bit about the flashback scenes, because we talked about some of the specifics of what they discussed in those moments. And I think this episode was called Saul Gone. It could easily have been called Time Machine. It seemed to be, that was the two conversations that he had with Mike and Walter were about this idea of like, if you had a time machine, what would you do? And I think you're really smart by pointing out that that's also like bullshitting, like it's just like a thing you say to somebody in a bar. But did you think that those scenes were happening as memories in the real time with Saul? Like as Saul is flying back to Albuquerque, he is thinking about Walter in the Granite State episode? Or were they Peter and the creative team saying, these are important things to think about in the overall thematic kind of philosophy of this show? Okay.
I think also on a kind of beautiful level, Peter Gould and Vince Gilligan have a time machine. They can call up punch-in dates and give us scenes that advance their arguments, validate their hopes or assumptions. Like they can do that, and they did it, and I kind of loved that. Like they created out of whole cloth 3 scenes that accessorized their final chapter, perfectly. Like they were perfectly chosen. And again, it's always that little extra bit of work. It's like my hero Abigail Disney always says, just do the extra 10%, right? Isn't that her famous book that she maybe wrote? In the sense that, would it have felt like a finale if we hadn't had a little Mike in it? Are we greedy to hope for a little one last dance with Walter White? I mean, the Chuck character was controversial, but absolutely definitive in a way for what the show was and what it was going to become. To have Michael McKean back was right. So the scenes could have been anything. And that's kind of what I always come back to with the show. It's just like, let's use the opportunities that we have and let's squeeze every last drop out of it. And to circle back to the thing you were saying before, this is definitely it. And think about that. They have wrung every story droplet out of this rag. And unless you want the Bill Oakley and Francesca spinoff, which I'm sure those dogged performers would love, and I'm not saying they don't deserve it, that's who we're left with here, and they had wonderful roles to play and they played them beautifully. But we're done. It goes back to what you said before. He's in prison. Nobody's chasing him anymore.
Yeah.
Like, let's let some. I just think they're too smart.
No, I wasn't like, when do we get Kim Wexler, attorney at law? I was just sort of saying.
I just mean it as a compliment to them. Like, I think that they are reading this room too and being like, yep, it's an opportunity. I think that what we just got was probably ultimately in the last, if you go back to the beginning of Breaking Bad 15 years ago. Yeah.
I think it's probably. I think you could make the argument that this is the greatest achievement in long-form storytelling on American television.
Yeah, I think it's a great argument.
What is it? 10 seasons of TV and a movie? 11 seasons of TV and a movie? And the fact that they were able to squeeze all this in while they could still reasonably make Aaron Paul look like he was 20.
Yep.
Or have Gus Fring look like he was 10 years younger than he was when he was in Breaking Bad. Or bring Jonathan Banks back. Or create another character like Kim Wexler and another character like Lala Salamanca and another character like Nacho Varga who could stand up to any of the Hall of Fame characters we met on Breaking Bad. That they were able to weave in not necessarily unanswered questions, but perhaps moments that we didn't get in the end of Breaking Bad, like what's life like for Marie, and a crime against cinematography that Marie was not in color, so that we couldn't get the classic purple pop that she, whatever her color palette was.
I think that's the most devastating thing of all. She probably has given up purple.
Well, just because Hank was her purple, like that was her source.
She wears black now. I mean, I thought that was profound. But I also think the time machine thing is really important because in all the examples given within this show, everything everyone says to varying degrees is about fixing stuff.
Yeah.
And that's essential to, maybe it's all fictional characters, but it just seems like a recurring theme, particularly in this television moment, when characters in the face of cascading catastrophe, often brought on by their own making, are like, wait, I can fix this. I can fix this. And none of them, and I guess none of them being, I mean, Walter just kind of, Walter too, they all play the game to a degree. And Chuck doesn't play the game, but he's reading the book. So at least he's entertaining the notion. None of them say, I would like to spend more time with people that meant something to me or that loved me or that I love. None of them. They're all like, I'll just fix it so it'll be better now.
Everything that Jimmy wants to do is about a shortcut. He wants to invest. He wants to, first of all, build a time machine, which is the kind of thing a kid says.
Yep.
He wants to simply make a ton of money really quickly for not doing anything by investing with Berkshire Hathaway the second Warren Buffett takes over. There's nothing about it that's like, I would have been a more serious law student, or I would have listened to my brother, or I would have tried to leave Albuquerque and start somewhere on my own if that's what was important to me, or left Albuquerque with Kim when I had the chance or something. It's all like, what's the angle? And in a way, prison is a time machine, because prison is a place where you're going to spend the rest of your life, in this case, not unlike the mall in Omaha. And time is going to become a construct very different than the one it is on the outside for Gene or Jimmy or Saul or whatever we're referring to.
And Mike's is almost religious. He just wants to go back to a moment of original sin, right?
Yeah.
And then just let things play out clean. But, the anti-TV answer to all their problems, which as rapacious TV fans, we're glad they didn't choose, but Mike could have just processed the loss of his son and spent the rest of his life with his granddaughter. Like that. That's not glamorous. Maybe she wouldn't have had the same savings account, but she lost that anyway. You know what I mean? Like they all gambled to fix stuff.
Oh, they were all
Chuck
just
too. Like Chuck's thing, with his anger about his brother and all this stuff. Like they could have hung out. You know, I mean, it sounds trite to say it, and it wouldn't have created the drama, but because it's so expertly constructed, this giant like house of cards or lies that they all build to try to solve problems without dealing with them, like it makes it more painful to consider, especially now that we're at the end of it.
The two ideas that I always go back to is what he says to Jeff when he confronts Jeff in Omaha, and he's just like, you want what everybody wants, which is to get in the game, and then the same thing that Kim said to him, which was that I didn't tell you because I was having too much fun. When he's like, why didn't you tell me about Mike warning us about Lalo? And she was like, because I was having too much fun. Or because it was fun.
It all ends in a dumpster.